Hi there. All righty. Good morning, everybody. This is my name is Stephen Thompson. It's good to see you there, Mike and Cheryl, and Christy, Lori, Barbara, and Sharon. My name is Stephen Thompson, and I am the program director at Al Mansour Academy for the Institute for the Redesign of Learning. We're located in South Pasadena, California. And what I do, I'm the program director. We're a non-public school. And if you never heard of a non-public school, we work exclusively with students in special education. A lot of our people call us the emergency room of education. So basically, a student is referred to us because their IEP can no longer be serviced in their regular public school. And they need a smaller environment. This is the least restrictive environment that a student could come to before they would go to a residential treatment center or possibly incarceration. So if you're thinking about a PBIS tier, they talk about tiers 1, 2, and 3, we're actually tier probably 4. And we try to work people back up and you look at it that way. So what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to share my screen with everybody, and I do enjoy having participation. So if we have enough people, I may do some breakout rooms so we can get to know each other and kind of talk through some situations, but we're calling this WTF. Now, if you're in a group chat, and everybody likes to be in a group chat, WTF could mean one thing, but I'm going to call it Why the Frown. And I'm calling it Leadership in Times of Crisis and How to Use Creativity to Enhance Your Well-Being. How did I come up with this title? Well, there was one day on campus when I was doing a compliance visit with some of our school districts, and that involves me sitting down with the school district representatives and going over just administrative things, our IEPs, our filing system, where we keep our medicine locked up, our security plan, our fire insurance policy, those types of things. And I have a co-director who works with me, and she comes in to the office and hands me a Post-it. And on the Post-it, it says, can't do the meeting because one of our students is ODing and we're waiting for the ambulance. Okay, I just look at that Post-it and I continue to talk about compliance issues with the district representatives. And then a text message comes through and it says such and such student is threatening to kill themselves. So we have to now call the PET team. So we're doing that. So I'm still talking about the compliance. So it got me thinking about there are usually multiple things of crisis that happen in our places of employment. I'm sure that everybody here experienced a crisis moment. So I want to talk about our well-being and not necessarily how to manage crisis. This is not about calling the PET team or being a mandated reporter. We're talking about our own internal selves and how we can work to deal with our own crisis. So I want to start off with an icebreaker. Gotta love having an icebreaker and want to start with one. There's your icebreaker. There's our big ship chopping up that ice out there. And I have a question for you. Think about your previous year that you've just finished and perhaps your upcoming year that you're about to start, and ponder this question. Would you rather have the ability to time travel into the past or jump into the future? And when you got there, what would you do? So you have that ability. Think about something you may want to fix, something you may want to change. What would you do if you have that ability? And I would love to hear some people share what they would do. So who wants to be brave enough to share with me what they would do if they traveled back in time? All righty, Diane.
Not so much last year, but for the couple years before during the pandemic, especially 2020 to 21, I would tell my past self that it was all going to be okay, that I can take a deep breath, and that we would be figuring it out.
Yes, I like that. It's all going to be okay. So I see in the chat, Chady said she would go into the future to look at stocks. I like that. I like that. How about one more? Who could give me one more, a brave individual? Anybody? Anybody?
I unmuted. Thank you for the opportunity. I definitely would not look back. I definitely have to look forward. This is the backwards look for me, is particularly last year. I thought 20 and 21 was bad, but anyway, I don't even want to think about it. I want to close the door and move into the future. But the thing I'm thinking about, if I could travel, would be how to make a bigger impact, a more effective impact on the lives of our young people with all of the things they're facing.
Yes, I like that. How to make a bigger impact on our students with everything they're facing. And that's a very good, jumping off point for, what I'm talking about today, and appreciate everyone sharing. So I want to talk about this. So we look at this, going to talk about crisis. We're going to talk about anxiety and rest. We're going to go in to jump into well-being, talk about creativity, and hopefully work on a personal plan. And then I'll leave you with some resources to sort of like work on your internal managing of crisis during your upcoming school years. First of all, let's look at crisis. What is crisis? Now, crisis comes from an ancient Greek term, krisis, which meant to decision or to judge. What the ancient Greeks looked at is a turning point in a medical patient when they got better or they eventually got worse. And that eventually evolved into our present meaning, which means danger and instability that requires immediate attention and resolution. And I think about that, about crisis, is that sometimes as a leader, we're managing situations that are not necessarily choices that we would make. But if we don't respond to them, we could potentially have our own careers in jeopardy. And we see that play out, in corporate America. We see that play out in the sports world. I think about Northwestern football, when you hear about the coaches losing his job because of what's going on in the locker room. And we as leaders have to manage these forms of crisis. And here's kind of what the theme of the workshop is. This quote here: you can't calm the storm, so stop trying. What you can do is calm yourself. The storm will pass. And going back to what one of our attendings shared, is that we'll always get better. We'll always be over. One of our teachers likes to say, Stephen, 2:30 always comes. And that's what I have to sometimes rely on. 2:30 is going to come. And whatever crisis that is occurring in the moment, it is going to pass. But I can't stop challenging situations. I can't stop a staff member from calling out. I can't stop somebody from going on leave. I can't stop the HR investigation. I can't stop the budget cuts. I can't stop the staff being angry about the budget cuts. But what I can do is calm myself. So that's what we want to look at. We want to think about our own internal well-being. And I want to talk about really quickly, want to share with you just kind of the crisis that we have in education right now. This is a great book called Permission to Feel. And we have two things going on in education right now. First of all, we're thinking about the well-being of our students. And here's a quote. It says, proof of our inability to deal constructively with our emotional lives is all around us. In 2015, in collaboration with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the Born This Way Foundation, founded by Lady Gaga and her mother, we conducted a large-scale survey of 22,000 teenagers from across the United States and asked them to describe how they feel while in school. 3/4 of the words they used were negative, were tired, bored, and stressed, topping the list. This wasn't surprising, given that around 30% of elementary and middle school students now experience adjustment problems severe enough to require regular counseling. In economically disadvantaged schools, this runs as high as 60%. American youth now rank in the bottom quarter among developed nations in well-being and life satisfaction, according to a report by UNICEF. Research shows that our youth have stress levels that surpass those of adults. Our teenagers are now world leaders in violence, binge drinking, marijuana use, and obesity. More than half of college students experience overwhelming anxiety, and a third report intense depression. And over the last 2 decades, there has been a 28% increase in our suicide rate. How clearly will kids think when they are feeling tired, bored, and stressed? How well do they absorb new information when they are anxious? Do they take their studies seriously? Do they feel inclined to express their curiosity and pursue learning? And now, also running on a separate track of the same freeway, it's not enough that our students who feel oppressed. What about their teachers? In 2017, in collaboration with the New Teacher Center, we surveyed more than 5,000 educators and found that they spend nearly 70% of their workday feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, and stressed. This conforms with Gallup data showing that nearly half of U.S. teachers report high stress on a daily basis, a frightening snapshot of our educational system. Wouldn't you agree? How effective are our educators when they feel just as frustrated, overwhelmed, and stressed as kids? Will they give 100% to their lessons? Do they snap at students unintentionally or ignore their needs because they are emotionally exhausted? Are they leaving work feeling burned out, dreading tomorrow's return to the classroom? So one of the things I love to hear in education is we got to do things that are research and data driven. It's always interesting that people who say that don't necessarily use the research and data all the time. So we are in America, we're talking about the achievement gap, the achievement gap, the achievement gap, and we're pointing to test scores. But then we look at the research and data that shows that our students are stressed and that our teachers are stressed. So how is a focus on the achievement gap going to help eliminate those situations? Well, if you want the achievement gap to increase, the research and data would simply say you have to take emotional well-being seriously. And one of the first persons to publish a study on burnout was a man named Herbert Freudenberger. And Herbert Freudenberger did research in the 70s on burnout. And he found this called compassion fatigue. And compassion fatigue is the behaviors and the emotions that come from helping people who've been through traumatic events. And this is on the rise with educators due to working directly with students who have experienced abuse and trauma. And compassion fatigue leads to teacher burnout due to educators caring for students who are experiencing difficult situations. So this is how it shows up in my life. So I work in a school where students have experienced an intense amount of trauma. And when I first began, it was easy for me to take that trauma home with me. So I hear about a student who may have been removed from the home, a student who is dealing with, drug use on their own. And I'm sitting there thinking about, well, what can I do? What kind of impact that I can make? There's a term that some of our students who have, an intellectual disability, they script. And you can see a student scripting outside. And usually when you go to hear the student, what they're talking about, what they're scripting about is an event that maybe occurred months ago or even years ago, but they're doing that all verbally. And then you see this student out there and you're like, well, we need to help the student. But for educators and for us, the scripting can be internal. We're internally scripting, and I would internally script. I get home and then I'm laying in bed at night. And then up comes, oh, this student is 16-year-old is messing around with a 20-year-old and she's running away from home. I've got another student who's just got hospitalized again, or another student who AWOL'd from the group home. And I'm thinking about these situations, and it's continuously churning up anxiety inside of me. And this is what compassion fatigue is. We are serving, and we all serve all of our students, but that fatigue begins to hit us. And then when we don't take that seriously or take means to address it, well, we get these signs. Burnout happens, become exhausted due to excessive demands. Now, there's the excessive demands of just working with students each day, but then there's the excessive demands of compliance. I think about the amount of compliance that I deal with. I'm working with students, but then I'm also managing teachers. Then I'm also going through the IEP process. So the IEP process brings in lawyers and advocates and keeping track of deadlines and assessments. And then there's teacher credentialing, trying to get everybody credentialed, and the demands that I believe sometimes are unfair that the state has placed upon teachers. Why do they got to go into debt to be a teacher? Why do we have to get multiple licenses to be a teacher? There's the physical signs: exhaustion, fatigue, sleeplessness. And then there's behavioral signs. We can be quick to anger, and we can be irritated, and we get frustrated. And this contributes to a teacher shortage, especially in my field of special education and in every workplace. There are people who work in special education. So burnout has been identified as a reason educators leave the profession. 46 states report a shortage of special education teachers. Teacher burnout affects student performance. And it's serious due to the fact it affects psychological well-being, and it shows up in the workplace. So that is a crisis. You know, when we think about the fact that we say after the pandemic that we want students to have access to special education, and we want students to have access to counseling, but we don't have enough people going into the field to meet that need. And if we don't keep our teachers and ourselves healthy, we leave the profession. I bet everybody knows somebody who left teaching to go into selling real estate. I do. But the thing about it is, we need teachers, we need educators. Sometimes people will say to me, "Oh, Stephen, I could never do your job." And I think to myself, we need leaders. Schools need leaders. Schools aren't going away. So we need to take care of ourselves. So anxiety from the Greek word mirama, it's a state of being troubled or concerned about something. And that's what I take home. That's what I go home with: anxiety. I'm troubled about my student situation. I'm troubled about finding a new teacher, 2 new teachers. I'm troubled about our budget. I'm thinking about, do I cut costs, and how do I cut costs and keep learning? So these are the things that are churning up inside of me, and I'm sure churn up in other people. So crisis and the forms that it takes. And I'm going to split us up into breakout rooms in a few minutes, so we have a big enough group to be able to do that. But here's crisis and the forms that it takes, and see which one you identify with, which ones you have to manage. There's financial crisis and employment crisis. You know, maybe you've been written up at your job. Maybe you've lost a job before in your career. Maybe you're worried about potentially losing a job or a career. Maybe you're conducting the HR investigation on an employee. Maybe you're having to write up an employee. It's no fun to write up an employee. It's no fun to do HR investigations, because I know at the core of my heart that it will hurt the culture of an organization, but I know that I have to do that. There could be health. You know, our employees deal with health problems, and health problems don't exist in a vacuum. It's not simply to say, well, keep your personal life personal. No, it's there with people. So we had a staff member pass away from cancer this year. We had another staff member, one of the founding members of our school who retired, who passed away this year. Our own teachers deal with their health. They deal with the health of loved ones. We have staff members who are caring for their relatives. Health is an issue. Violence. We see violence on our campus every day. Students who are in violence, students who commit violence, and then we have tragedy. Tragedy is something that we don't ever want to see. We hear about school shootings. We just had a student who was killed right at the end of ESY, and we have to manage that tragedy. We have to be there and respond with empathy and compassion. So think about those and how you may manage it, what goes on internally when you run into any of those. So what I want to do is we're going to go into breakout rooms. So you get a chance to meet people. It won't be too long. It'll be about 10 minutes. So you go into breakout rooms, and I want you to talk about the various moments of crisis you experienced during the past school year. And then I want you also to talk about the thoughts and feelings that you had when you left school and went home. So those are two questions. What I'm going to do is we have enough people. And, you know, one of the things we all are school, we all work in schools. So we all talk. And if we didn't talk, we wouldn't be educators. So sometimes it could be challenging to, you know, talk with new people. But remember, this is what we do, right? We do this with our students. So we can do this, you know, with ourselves. So we're going to meet some new people. And I'm going to give us about 10 minutes, get to know each other, chat with each other. And then when we come back from the breakout room in about 10 minutes, we're going to just talk about it. So I'm going to move everybody into their breakout rooms in just a second. And I have a couple people in the room with you. And you can get to know each other. You can chat, talk about crisis and how it shows up in your day-to-day. All righty, just like they used to do in Star Trek, here we go. Bam, off to the breakout rooms you go.
Playing from Steven's iPhone.
All right, people are coming back from the breakout rooms. I think some people came back on their own and some still have a few seconds left before they all close. We get beamed back. All right. I hope individuals had some good conversations, chatting with your colleagues. It looks like we have one breakout room still going, but that's a positive that people are chatting like that. All right, looks like everybody is back. All righty, who wants to share what they got out of their discussion with their coworkers, friends, and colleagues in education? Who's going to be brave? I don't want to voluntold anybody at a conference. I'm
I
not going
don't
to do
mind.
that.
I'll be brave.
Okay, Sharon,
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right.
Just, I believe it was helpful. It was helpful for me personally to understand, listen to, and have empathy for the kinds of situations that we are facing. While some are similar and some are different, we all have the same needs and that we all have the same desire to help these kids. And we do not all successfully probably go through the lessening the anxiety when we go home. And part of that is because we care, but we all express that there's a great need for us to be able to do some self-care to take care of ourselves because these situations are real.
Yes, yes. And number one, it just shows how valuable we are because the students need us. We are some of our students' best hope out there, and we have to take care of ourselves. I'm a sports junkie, and I read that the U.S. Women's World Cup team spends millions of dollars bringing cooks and, making everything perfect for the World Cup team when they're there. So they have cooks and they have therapists and they have masseuses and they have yoga, and all of them are there to support the team to be able to be successful. And I think about any football team or any sports team, they have training camp, they have trainers. One of the reasons they said Tom Brady played till he was almost 45 is because he took incredible care of his body. Say same thing for LeBron James. He takes incredible care of his body. So the sports world knows that in order to be successful, you have to take care of yourselves. How much more as educators should we take care of ourselves with everything that we face? So we have to be in shape for our school year. So I found this out walking. It's going to move into the creative portion of this, how I use, art and creativity to take care of myself, my form of self-care. So I look at I found this out walking. No one is making it out alive. So make the most time of your living. And what I'm grateful about, I don't have to question my purpose in my employment because I know that I'm making a difference. And I believe all of you have that too. You all are out there making a difference every day. Sometimes I hear stories about somebody who was a stockbroker and they make a lot of money. And then one day they're like, I want to make a difference. And then they try to find meaning and purpose in another field. We don't have to do that. Every day we have meaning and purpose, and every day we're serving. So that is not something that we have to worry about. But we do need to take care of ourselves. And creativity is a great way to take care of yourself. Here's a couple. I want to hear you give you a couple quotes about creativity and art. The country is so wounded, bleeding, and hurt right now. The country needs to be healed. It's not going to be healed from the top politically. How are we going to heal? Art is the healing force. And Robert Redford said that. It's another quote. The medical profession has come a long way in recognizing the healing benefits of art. My hope is that someday the arts will be considered as significant as an essential in everyone's lives as breathing fresh air, eating clean foods, and engaging in physical exercise. So creativity. How I start off is this easy gratitude practice that I do during the day. It could be either in the morning or at night. And this is something you think about and relate these to your place of employment. And I'll just do this in your head and I'll go through, or you can do this on a piece of paper if you have one with you. But I think sometimes we need to begin to find meaning again in our jobs and connect with that. So like materially, I'm grateful that I have an office to work in every day. Emotional, I'm grateful that I can work with students who I enjoy. Relational, I'm grateful for my coworkers that I get to come and see each and every day. Spiritual, I'm grateful that, my job is an act of service, that it's an act of contribution, that I'm not out there swindling anyone. I'm not selfish and working for my own gain, but I have a sense of purpose, and education is a very purposeful servant career. And physical, I'm grateful that I can walk around and talk to students. So relate your gratitude. One way to deal with anxiety is gratitude about the current situation that you are in. If anybody's ever read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, he was in a concentration camp. And one of the ways that he was able to help other people in the concentration camp not kill themselves was to help them see that they could control the story that went on in their head. The Nazis had taken everything away from them, but they could not take away how they thought. And that helped him and others to be able to endure those horrors and then make it out by just simply controlling the story that went on in your own head. So gratitude is one way to use creativity. Next is rest. And rest comes from the Greek word anapao. Look at the cute little dog there. And seeking refreshment, rejuvenation, both physical and spiritual. And that's what we have to do. We have to look for ways to refresh ourselves and rejuvenate ourselves, both physically and spiritually in our own lives. And here's the hack that I have. 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes a day is what I do, and I just devote this and maybe a little bit more time to being creative. Now, we all have 10 minutes a day. You may not think that you have 10 minutes a day, but think about this. This is how I figured out. Sometimes when I think about creativity, well, I don't have time to be creative because I have so much stuff going on. Well, go to your phone and check your screen time and see how much time you spend on maybe social media, or see how much time you spend texting. And I began to see that, well, I was spending a half hour a day on Facebook. I was spending an hour a day on Instagram. So I have time. So just stop using Instagram, stop using Facebook, not quitting it altogether, but take 10 minutes. So this is what I do in my 10 minutes. I use my gratitude practice. I also have this practice called write and tear. And what I do with this is I will sit down and write down a situation, take out a piece of paper and write it down, write down everything that was horrible, all my thoughts, all my attitudes, anything that basically would get me fired if anybody saw it. And then when I'm done, I tear it up. And that's symbolically letting go of the situation. I use meditation apps. There's Headspace, there's Calm. You can use those. Keep your phone out of your sleeping area. This was a game changer for me because what I would tend to do, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd go check my phone, and then I'm up. Then I'm thinking about stuff. Then you're perseverating, and then it's just over. I got an old school alarm clock. My phone is on my desk in another room. We used to do this, back in the day before we all had phones. We didn't have a phone in our room, so we didn't constantly check it. So we can do that. We can pretend like it's 1994 again. And I keep my phone out of my sleeping area. Nature, it's getting out and going on walks. Naming. Sometimes in a difficult situation, I'll just begin to name what's around me. Okay, there is a black wall. There is a piece of paper near me. And that kind of gets me grounded back into the regular moment. And then what I like to have is a Sabbath period. That's 24 hours of rest, usually on the weekends. I'll take 24 hours. And in that 24-hour period of time, there will not be anything work-related going on. So I will do that. And then I have a 2-phone solution. What I do is my company has given me the option of having one phone, and they'll compensate me or they'll give me my own phone. Having two phones works out because then I have a way of physically disconnecting from the workplace. So I can turn my phone off and that's it. I only keep on my phone, my personal phone, emergency contacts. So the admin team and my boss, in case there's any emergency that happens in the workplace, they can get a hold of me. I don't have any email on my personal phone. I don't have my Google Drive on my personal phone. All of that stays on my work phone. So I have a physical separation. So like when I leave my workplace at nighttime and I get in my car and I drive home, I turn my phone off, I put it in my backpack, and that is a symbol of leaving the workplace as well. So we don't have that creep and nothing bad happens. Nothing bad happens in that time. Okay. Creativity is self-care. This is what I look at. This is my big thing. I do creativity as self-care. So I have a podcast called The Stephen Thompson Experience. I have a YouTube channel called The Stephen Thompson Experience as well. I have a blog. I publish 2 novels and I play the saxophone. So that is what I do. That helps me. When I first started working here, a friend of my wife's told her that, you will need some sort of creative outlet because of all the things that you face. And I do. So I naturally enjoy working. So if I came home and just continuously work, which I did at one point in my career, there was a point in my career where I was just a workaholic, where I was proud of it. I was proud of getting to work at 5 a.m. I was proud of sending emails at midnight. I was proud of staying late, and my health, physical health, was taking a toll. And I went to my doctor once and he just really looked at my numbers on certain things like blood pressure and blood sugar. And he said, if you don't change this, something bad's going to happen to you. So I had to make changes. So now I work much healthier, but I still have the desire to do things. So I'm creative and the creativity doesn't stress me out. So that is how you use creativity as self-care. So back again to the idea of rest, seeking refreshment, rejuvenation, both physical and spiritual. Okay. So there it is. Saturday mornings, I go down to the beach. I live in Southern California. I live in West LA. There's a coffee shop I go to called the Cow's Inn. I get coffee. I walk out on the pier. I just look at the ocean. That's nature. This is part of like my Sabbath time. And I just kind of let the week go. The week goes out into the ocean and I begin to reset for the next week. It's a creative practice that I have, even taking the photos out on the ocean, being able to upload it into this PowerPoint. It's a way that I am taking care of myself. It's a great study if you're into reading study. It's a great study. It's called What Makes Teachers Well, a mixed method study of special education teachers' well-being. I do have a copy of this in the session notes that you can read, but it really talks about there are these things that are part of well-being for teachers to feel great. What they talked about is this idea that the stressors of education will always be there. And even paying teachers more money is not necessarily going to remove those stressors or make someone feel better about their job, but these things do. So community, which is a sense of belonging. You go to work, you like your coworkers like you, it's not toxic, you have friends, you may gather with them in the workplace, you may gather with them outside of the workplace. That gives you a sense of belonging. The next thing is leadership, giving educators opportunities to lead, letting them take charge of their projects or a group or something on campus, asking a staff member, hey, is there something that you like to do? Is there a passion project? You get the opportunity to create your job. That's one of the things I enjoyed about teaching. It's one of the things that I enjoy about being an administrator. For the most part, outside of like compliance issues, I set my day. Nobody's telling me what to do each day. So that is what I enjoy, that independence to be able to create. And then well-being. Well, that's kind of the motion of your world. And looking at well-being is the authors of the study suggested that you should make a calendar for the year. And in that calendar, the school year ebbs and flows. So we all know how that goes. The beginning of the year is super stressful, getting everybody involved. Then you begin to look forward to the holidays. You look forward to November, then there's Thanksgiving, then there's Christmas, then you're on break. Then you get into January, and then there's that long slog until you hit spring break, and then it's the sprint to the end of the year. So the calendar allows you to reflect on various questions, and those questions will help put you into a better frame of mind. And then observe yourself. Get in the habit of looking at your own internal temperature. That is how I am feeling on a daily basis. Now, the picture on the left is my office. And as you notice, there's a lot of toys and things that I ripped off from my son, but they're intentionally. I don't want my office to be this dreaded place where students are afraid to go. And it is kind of some tension because there should be some sort of consequences for students who are in my office, but I also want to be able to engage and build a relationship. So a lot of these things are ways for me to enter into conversations and dialogue with my students. And it's also something that I enjoy. I enjoy creativity. I enjoy coffee, and I enjoy going to coffee places, and I enjoy getting different coffee mugs. And my Keurig is over there too. You can see that off to the far left. But it is another way how I am bringing creativity into my job and making my workplace a place that I enjoy to go. Like I enjoy coming into my office, and it's a place where I enjoy being. I don't stay in it all day long, but I enjoy being there. Okay. So last activity, and this will be real short, 5 minutes in a breakout room. These 3 things want to start practicing building your own personal well-being plan. And you want to pass this on to your staff. How do you refresh yourself? What practices can you implement to rejuvenate during the upcoming year? And what crisis do you anticipate you will need to work through this upcoming year? So we're going to do a short breakout room. Okay, 5 minutes, because we're coming up to the end. But in your time, look at those 3 questions, because we're putting together our personal plan to take care of ourselves. So those 3 things. How do you refresh yourself? What practices can you implement to rejuvenate during the upcoming year? And what crisis do you anticipate you will need to work through this coming year? So here we go, breakout rooms. And we're going to do 5 minutes, because I know we're getting down to the end of this. All righty. And we are off. There we go. All righty. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. All right. Well, we are down to the end of this, coming close to the end. I want to be able to, I want to share just one small clip with you. Look at those three questions: refreshing yourself, rejuvenating yourself, and anticipating crisis to work through. And this is, I love Rocky. I'm a Rocky geek. I want to play this short quote as we close out.
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you wanna be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that. I'm always gonna love you no matter what. No matter what happens. You're my son, you're my blood. You're the best thing in my life. But until you start believing in yourself, you ain't gonna have a life.
All right. I love that quote because it kind of sums up what we do. We get hit as educators. And even though I have rainbows on this presentation, it isn't all sunshine and rainbows. We do have successes. We have a lot of successes. And I know that each and every one of us has successes in their day-to-day. But we got to know that we're going to get hit. And when we get hit, we got to keep moving forward. There's a Greek word for power, and it's called dunamis. And that means the inherent strength or ability. And that means that we will be confident and faithful in the face of events that are challenging. And that's what we want to be able to do. We want to be able to go out and serve our population. We want to serve them with confidence, and we want to serve them with our strength that we inherently have. So a couple of resources that I have for you. I have a creativity worksheet. I have a worksheet called Fun and Joy. Then there's a teacher reflection worksheet that you can use and answer the questions. There's a well-being calendar that I talked about that you can use to be able to reflect and consider your well-being. And then there's that well-being study that I referenced. So I just want to thank all of you for coming out today, for sharing. It's 11:29. I guess I can start on time and end on time. You guys have all been a great audience. I hope you got something out of this. I hope you can go back to your teaching staff. I hope you can take care of yourself, and that we all will continue to make a difference, because that's what we do. Our students need us. Our staff needs us. We are in a wonderful position. So thank you so much.